Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We are going to go ahead and begin. I think everyone who had signed up is now in attendance. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Mallory Sykes. I'm the Director of Renew Media. This is the fourth webinar in our series, and I hope you enjoy today. Our speaker will be Grant May, and I'm going to go ahead and give him the controls. But before I do that, I just want to let you know if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to raise your hand in the toolbar or type in a question. We will try our best to answer those as we go. If we don't get to them, then at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session. So we will make sure that at some point we get your answers, but go ahead and type those in as you have them. So I will go ahead now and make Grant the presenter.
Thanks, Mallory. Can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes.
Is it coming through properly, Mallory? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, how's everybody doing today? I appreciate you guys letting me come on and speak. Out of respect for everyone's time today, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today we will be talking about the consumer journey. So some of the things we're going to cover today in the webinar we'll go through a quick introduction, kind of introduce myself. We'll talk about the consumer journey, how it was versus how it is now. We'll cover the stages of the consumer journey. Then we'll move into defining your target audience, talking a little bit about digital strategies and the consumer journey, how you can measure your success, and then lastly, digital solutions that will drive your KPI results. And we'll finish off with a Q&A for all the unanswered questions, okay? So quick introduction here. My name is Grant May. I'm a digital marketing strategist with right around 3 years of experience in the field. I specialize in working with clients to provide research-based custom media plans that are tailored to fit your business's goals. I have worked with a variety of businesses ranging from small local retail to regional automotive groups and even nationwide major brands. I have a passion for research, and I love talking data and stats and turning those into a media plan to help your business achieve their goals. I also enjoy winter sports, spicy food, and science fiction novels. So just a little bit about me there. So we'll go ahead and get started here. The consumer journey then versus now. Act your age. What do we mean by that? Well, the old consumer journey was actually originally developed in 1898. That is 120 years ago, which is pretty old when you think about the digital world. It was developed in writings by Philadelphia advertising pioneer St. Elmo Lewis, and his framework was also sometimes called the AIDA model, which stands for awareness, interest, desire, and action. Lewis's marketing funnel is literally a 19th century concept that we still apply to today's digital, social, mobile world. So as you can tell, it's a little outdated. The marketing funnel, it focuses on the four main stages of the consumer faces in the buying process, those being the AIDA stages. It's a trickle-down process that can often give marketers funnel vision, meaning that they lose sight of the actual consumer and they focus too much on trying to put them in a place within the consumer journey. The primary problem with the funnel is that it is no longer linear. The buying process nowadays has evolved, and prospects don't just enter into the top of the funnel. Instead, they come in at any stage. Furthermore, they often jump stages, stay in a stage indefinitely, or move back and forth between them. The funnel has been discarded in favor of different types of consumer journey maps that have been developed by companies like Google, Intuit, Twitter, and Visa. I threw in a couple little cartoons here just for some marketing humor. And the main goal of these is to kind of poke fun at the fact that how the funnel is so outdated. In the comic, you see that the business owner is so focused on trying to determine where his customer is in the funnel that he fails to see what she really wants. Here's another one talking about the fact that the consumer journey has been followed by the models for so long that the advertisers are failing to realize where the consumers are and are ending up throwing marketing tactics at them with outdated solutions that aren't driving results that they're looking for. Now I'd like to show you a real quick video from our friends over at Google. And I'm sure we all pretty much use Google almost every day. I know I do, at least. And what Google has found is that consumers are no longer living life and following the consumer journey in stages. Rather, they found that most consumers live life in what they call micro moments. These micro moments are small events along the path of life that drive consumers to make purchases. Let's take a quick look at what I'm talking about.
You hear a clicking or a grinding sound when you turn the key?
All right, so after watching this, what does the consumer journey look like today? Well, if you ask Google, they've developed their journey into 4 stages of see, think, do, and care. And using Google's model, we developed one similar that reflects those stages, but they're just worded a little differently. Those are awareness, interest, action, and advocacy. It's a 4-step process. Awareness, it includes customers who do not currently have a need or interest in your business or services. The consumer is made aware of a product or service through various stimuli. Interest. This encapsulates consumers who have an initial interest or curiosity between your business or your services. They are researching or showing interest, and what consumers see, read, or hear during this change ultimately shapes their buying decision, and most purchase decisions are made in this stage of the consumer journey. Action. This is the stage when people will have an immediate demand for your business or services. They are looking to purchase. There are other elements that go beyond marketing that can affect the ultimate purchase during this stage, such as merchandising, storefront organization, or interaction with the salespeople. 40% of consumers say that elements such as those can be decisive factors when making their purchase. And lastly, advocacy. This is the stage where the consumer has converted. They've purchased at least 2 times, which is what we consider to be a converted consumer. And more importantly, this is the stage where a nurtured consumer will become an advocate. And that's the ultimate goal for any business, to have customers who are actively helping to convert other consumers through social media engagement, positive reviews, or even word of mouth. Now, these stages are set up in a linear style because the consumer journey follows a path. But the difference between our journey now versus the original funnel model is that the consumers, as I said earlier, can come in and out of the stages and start at any time. They can move backwards, forwards, skip over stages, and one person's advocacy could even become another person's interest or action. A consumer's time spent in the journey can often be directly correlated to the size of the purchase. You know, grabbing that pack of gum at the checkout line in the grocery takes a lot less time than maybe trying to decide a new appliance or a new vehicle. Can anyone raise their hand in the audience that may have made a recent purchase for a large appliance or maybe a car, or with, Black Friday, a TV, and kind of give us a little insight on the process that you went through? Did you read any reviews? Did you go test drive or visit the product in the store? And what ultimately led you to buy or not buy?
Grant, it looks like Catherine has her hand raised. Do you want me to go ahead and let her answer this question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
I read some reviews online.
Okay. And did those reviews influence you to buy the product? Did you see that it was a bad review and decided maybe I should skip over this?
Yes, and then I read reviews for a different product and bought that one instead.
Oh, okay. So you actually went to the competitor's model based off of the online advocacy that you saw.
Yes.
Awesome. That's a great example of how your online presence makes a huge difference in where the consumer ends up finally purchasing from. Catherine was not happy with the reviews that she saw, and so she decided to actually buy from the competitor. And that's a great example of how the consumer journey flows nowadays. Moving on, we'll take a look at Samantha here. Samantha has a 9-year-old son who went to a baseball game and absolutely loved it. And now he wants to play. So where does Samantha start? She was sparked by that micro moment, as we just saw earlier, and is automatically thrown into the interest stage. She completely skipped awareness. So she begins searching on the web, and she's reviewing those search engine results, both paid and organic. She finds a few gloves online that fits the specs, and she thinks that it's at the right price point. So she, like Catherine, reads some reviews about the gloves, and then she searches online for a sporting goods store that carries those models. Her and her son visit the actual physical store to test the gloves and consult with an employee and purchase their favorite glove. Her son ends up loving the glove, and Samantha posts a review about the positive customer service that she received at the store. She then receives an email from Jeff Sporting Goods with the regular offers about the in-store sales and becomes a lifetime customer. So next season, when they need a larger glove and cleats, where does she go? Back to Jeff Sporting Goods and shares their promotion with her other team moms. So as you can see, it's not a one and done system like the funnel used to make us think. The consumer went back and forth between a couple of different stages there, doing their research and looking at the advocacy, and then finally making the purchase and becoming an advocate herself. So how do we find our Samanthas? How does your business know who you should be delivering your message to? Well, it's all about defining your target audience. First, let's talk about what is a target audience. Google defines a target audience as a particular group at which a film, book, advertising campaign, etc. is aimed. This textbook definition seems pretty self-explanatory, right? Now ask yourself, how would you define your target audience? What does your customer look like? I can bet at least one, if not more of you, have thought to yourself just now, either man or woman or both, who is within age range of X number of years and has a household income of so many dollars. I'm not trying to trick you. This is just because most businesses will often define their customers using demographics. That's because way back then, back before we had all the tracking capabilities that are at our disposal these days, businesses created what they called their customer. This mold typically was based off of basic research and kind of more so just who they might see most often in the store. For instance, if you are a golf shop, your typical customer probably skews towards maybe an older male who makes a fair amount of money to enjoy a leisure sport like golf. But ask yourself this, if you own that golf shop and a younger woman walks in and she's interested in a set of Titleist, are you going to turn her away? Of course not. Even though the consumer doesn't fit the typical profile of your customer, a sale is a sale. Well, now with tracking capabilities of the internet, we are able to use behavioral data to more accurately target potential consumers. As businesses, we have to redefine our target audience. No longer is it a demographic. It is now anyone you want to reach with a specific message at a certain time in the buying process. So how can I find my target audience? As a business owner, you have a lot of tools that are at your disposal. One of them is CRM data. Your customer relationship management data is going to be all the information that you collect on previous customers. And what better customer than a repeat customer? Repeat customers are a lot cheaper to maintain, and they drive a larger lifetime value. If they've purchased your good or service, there's a good chance they will return, as people are creatures of habit. For instance, I use Tide Laundry pretty much exclusively. And why? I really have no clue. My parents always bought it, and does that make it any better than any other brand? I think so, but probably not. They all clean just the same. Once a customer finds a brand, products, or services they like, they will continue to buy them almost blindly. Nurture your current customer base and keep them coming back. Your next way to find your target audience is Google Analytics. While Google Analytics has been around for 13 years now, it's become incredibly popular in really the last 3 to 5 years. And that's because businesses are starting to realize what potential tracking customer information has on converting sales. It's a free program that has plenty of supplied online training for how to utilize the program to its full extent. I recommend that if you don't have a Google Analytics account set up, you look into it. Customers are researching and shopping online more and more every day, so capturing how they interact with your digital storefront and use that to your advantage to optimize your site. Next is leveraging your social media. Social media is an excellent way to get in front of potential customers because companies like Facebook actually have the ability to create target audiences that are just as refined as some of the top data aggregators. Use this to your advantage to create target audiences and test your ads. The cost of Facebook ads can sometimes be relatively cheap, so it's a great way to test your market before pouring a lot of money into it. Keep in mind that on social media, it's the new word of mouth. Consumers trust a social media review almost as much as they do from hearing it from their friends. And a lot of times that's because the reviews they see are actually from people they know. Use this to your advantage and have customers write reviews about positive experiences and share posts that you create to get your brand out there. Next, you can check out your competition. If you have a competitor who, steals your business time after time, maybe take a look at what they're doing and try and figure out how they're doing it. I'm not saying to mimic them. You need to be your own brand, but it doesn't hurt to benchmark yourself and your industry and see what's working for others. And lastly is choosing demographics. I know on the previous slide I was giving demographic targeting a little bit of a hard time, but if you really don't know where to start to find your audience, demographics is a great place. Stereotypes, while not always true, do exist for a reason, and if the majority of your customers live in a certain area or make a certain income, or maybe even sway to a particular gender, there's nothing wrong with using that as a base, but I just ask that you don't only demographically target. Now, the reason I ask you to not only demographically target is because nowadays we have what's called behavioral targeting. It's one of the more recent developments in digital marketing, and it uses it creates an audience based on their online behavior. By use of cookies, websites collect data on users and can actually predict which users might be potential buyers. For instance, if I read a lot of Top Gear articles online, I might be a car buff. So then I would be delivered ads for things such as auto parts stores or maybe even upcoming events for car shows in my area. And I'm sure we've all visited a website to look at a product and have been followed around the web by that same ad who just seems to keep on creeping on the screen and getting back into our mind. Using behavioral targeting, you can create an audience of users that are interested in your products. And when you pair that with demographic targeting, such as geography, you're now maximizing on your potential customers. Lastly, to redefine your target audience, you should look to make what we call lookalike audiences. A lookalike audience is simply just that, an audience that looks like your target audience. Lookalike audiences are a way to reach new people who are likely to be interested in your business because they are similar to your existing customers. Lookalike audiences are a great tool to use because it uses behavioral and demographic to cross-reference users and find potential new leads. I'd like to share a little example from a campaign one of my teams ran in the past, where we were doing a campaign for an outdoor store that sold products such as Patagonia jackets. Well, our data program cross-referenced users who were interested in those Patagonia jackets and found out that those users were also purchasers of a popular shoe called Yeezys. It's an Adidas brand that is designed by the rap star Kanye West. Now, even though the outdoor store did not sell this product or even really know what it was one of the most influential search terms in their campaign, and we drove a ton of traffic to their site because we found other users were searching for Yeezys that were also potential Patagonia buyers. Those little things can make a huge difference in your success in finding new customers. Now, if you're still having some trouble and you need some assistance, don't worry, because we can help. By pairing with Renew Media, your business could potentially tap into a market that your business has never sold to before. And that's because we use research back from Nelson, Burrell, and other data companies to deep dive into your industry and find out exactly the user who you should be targeting. We use unstructured data that is collected from users' online behavior to deliver ads. It's not just bucket dumping. In addition to that, we also create the lookalike audience, which are, as we just discussed, audiences that look just like your target audience. We also have a wide variety of experience in working in industries that gives us a competitive edge when it comes to already knowing some insight on what works and what doesn't work. And lastly, we monitor your campaigns consistently throughout to make sure that we look for any optimizations that could help you get ahead of the curve if your audience shifts. So now that we've discussed a little bit about how the digital world has shaped the new consumer journey and how to find your audience, let's talk a bit about the strategies your business should utilize. It's important to know that there's no such thing as a silver bullet when it comes to marketing on how specific businesses should position themselves. There are so many different factors such as size, industry, competitors that play into it. And additionally, the length of time in business can make a huge difference. A brand new startup company that has been around for a long time might need to focus on certain areas of marketing that a long-standing one does not need to, and vice versa. But regardless, if you are old, new, small, or large, there are a few generic guidelines for digital strategies related to the consumer journey that ring true a majority of the time. As you can see, we have the digital marketing strategies broken down into 3 main categories. These strategies are virtual presence, consumer acquisition, and branding strategy. Now, we're going to work a little bit backwards here, so just stay with me. But first and most importantly, the most important strategy is your virtual presence. Why is that? Virtual presence solidifies your business's virtual doorway and allows the consumer to convert people who have an immediate need and nurture consumers that have already converted. Virtual presence is where we start for all businesses, and if you're branding without your virtual presence in order, you're teeing up your business for competition. The next is customer acquisition. Customer acquisition reaches consumers who are exhibiting initial interest, research behavior, and buying signals. And last of all is branding. Branding is essentially introducing and influencing the largest qualified audience. All right, so we'll just let that sink in for a minute. When we look at these strategies from a consumer standpoint, the flow kind of seems to make more sense if you read it left to right. So why doesn't it work that way if you're the business owner? One might think it's as simple as finding an audience, targeting the top leads, and then converting, right? Well, there's a few obstacles that the consumer might face along the way that prevents the conversion. Let's say, for instance, you've got a whole bunch of branding ads running, and you're utilizing all the bells and whistles of digital marketing to narrow your customer list to only the top potential leads. So you got the first 2 strategies down to a T, but maybe you're lacking a little bit on your virtual presence. Well, when the consumer comes to convert, they're going to do what 88% of online shoppers, according to e-commerce wiki, do, and that is research. Okay, they'll check out your company in comparison to others, and well, let's say your website's slow to load. We know that 10% of consumers leave if your load time is longer than 2 seconds, which is pretty short. And say it's not mobile friendly because we all use that supercomputer in our pocket nowadays for everything. Or even worse, you have bad reviews. What do you think the customer is likely to do? Well, if it's me, or as Catherine said earlier, it's not buy and probably go find another product similar from another competitor. Moving on here, we'll talk about how these strategies intertwine and how even though the virtual presence strategy covers one aspect of the consumer journey, it also covers a couple others. So as you can see, it overlaps on advocacy, action, and interest. And it's the foundation. It has to be in place before anything else can really happen. The next is the customer acquisition. As you see, it overlaps in interest and action. And that's going to be capitalizing on the demand currently in the marketplace. And then lastly, branding hits those awareness and interest stages there. So now that we've talked a little bit about the digital strategies you should be using, let's talk about measuring your campaign success. What is marketing campaign success? Well, if you ask any business owner, sales, 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 sales. That is the most common response that I get from business owners when we discuss their view of success. And rightfully so. A sale means revenue, and enough revenue means profit. It also means that your marketing effort and dollars are not in vain. But when we dig a little deeper, it's clear that while sales might equal success, there are many smaller steps along the way to get you there. And that leads us into goals and key performance indicators, or KPIs. I'm sure your business has its own set of goals, but if you don't, it's never too late to set some. I highly recommend a business set and review their goals monthly, if not at least quarterly throughout the year. This is going to help you ensure that you stay on track and you're driving results your business needs. Alternatively, it'll also catch yourself early if your business performance is not aligning with the goals you set. Now, within goals, there are smaller units of success called KPIs. These are key performance indicators. They are used to evaluate success of the advertising technique your business is engaging in. And this can be things like unique visitors, time on site, phone calls. And on the next slide, I'll show you a few more examples of KPIs. But lastly, in regards to campaign success, we have conversions. And what is a conversion? At its core, a conversion is any action a consumer takes after viewing an ad for your business. It is easy to get conversions and KPIs a little confused because they're very similar. While a KPI is a measurement of a successful action, a conversion is the actual action itself. Let me say that again. While a KPI is a measurement of a successful action, a conversion is the actual action itself. So for example, a KPI you might be measuring is phone calls, like I mentioned earlier. When the consumer physically calls your store, the phone call itself is a conversion, but tracking that action is what a key performance indicator is. Now, there are some conversions that are larger than others, and really that just means they yield a higher probability of converting a sale, but all conversions are important. Every consumer has different buying behaviors, so while they might hop on your site and buy immediately, others might check out your products and services and then return at a later time. Keep in mind that conversions is a buzzword these days for digital agencies, and a lot of them like to show you reporting saying, look at how many conversions we got your website. That's great, but I advise you challenge those statements and ask them, what does this mean in terms of reaching my goals? Anyone can show you conversions, but it's being able to read the consumer data and apply it to your goals so that you can turn it into revenue that's very important. Can anyone give me an example of a goal your business has for your current marketing plan? And if possible, can you elaborate on maybe any of the key performance indicators that you're trying to track to reach those goals? Okay, we'll move forward. As I said earlier, I'll show you a couple more key performance indicator metrics. So depending on which action you're wanting to track, maybe your acquisition or the behaviors of the site, or even outcomes, these are all different types of key performance indicators that can be measured. Things like unique visitors to your website, or downloads of an app, or even form fills, phone calls, or emails. While some of them are smaller than others, they're all very important in making sure that you're building a strong digital marketing campaign. The last thing we'll touch on with measuring success is utilizing all the online tools available for you to tell that performance story. For those of you who are currently tracking your Google Analytics, you might have seen a dashboard similar to the screenshot. If at any time you choose to run a digital marketing campaign with Renew Media, we offer a 24/7 dashboard for you to track all your campaigns and measure your goal completion. This dashboard also integrates your Google Analytic data directly so that you don't have to have multiple dashboards and you can log all of it into one place. I know I certainly don't need another username and password. I've already got way too many. And the final objective for today's webinar is to expose you all to some digital solutions that drive KPI results that you would want within your digital strategy. So going back to the virtual presence, as I said before, it's the foundation for all other marketing strategies, and it should be the first strategy that we tackle. It's going to solidify your business's virtual doorway and allow you to convert people who have an immediate need and then nurture consumers who have converted. A few KPI examples of things that you might want to track for your virtual presence would be things like reviews, social interactions, downloads, your listing score, page rank. All of those things are going to play a huge effect when it comes to the consumer trying to find your business. A few tactics to get you to those goals would be things like social media, SEO, CRM targeting, Facebook ads. While these aren't the only tactics that you can follow, they certainly are good suggestions for ones that if you're not currently doing, should look into. Here's a good example of virtual presence strategies. As you can tell, Ford has a dominating presence on this slide. And it's also consistent all the way across from their website to their Facebook page to their Google My Business listing. Everything carries the same message and it allows the consumer to easily recognize their brand. Consumer acquisition. It intersects at the interest, action, and advocacy stage, and it reaches the consumers who are exhibiting initial interest, research behavior, and buying signals. Again, some KPI examples here of things that you might want to track for consumer acquisition would be things like time on site, bounce rate, phone calls, online sales, and form fills. Few tactics to help you get there. Again, we have things such as Facebook, but there's also things such as SEM, email, and then advanced audience targeting with your category, keyword, contextual, and search. And here's a good example of a customer or consumer acquisition strategy. The consumer goes to Google, types in Ford, and it gets served a paid sponsored ad at the very top, making it very easy for them to just move their mouse down, simply click on their website, and go straight to their page. And last of all is branding. Branding is the introducing and influencing your largest qualified audience, as we talked about earlier. And within branding, you might want to measure things such as social engagements, views, maybe things such as new visitors to your website, your reach, your site traffic overall. And ways to generate branding would be, again, Facebook, as we all know, is a wonderful all across the board. Email, audience targeting, even targeting things such as Spotify and YouTube are a great way to get in front of consumers who might have not have originally associated your brand with the products that they're looking for. Sorry about that. And lastly, here's a branding strategy here. Getting your logo very large, keeping a lot of white space, which isn't a bad thing, so that the consumer has to focus their eyes on your logo and words and get that brand recognition really ingrained in their brain. All right, well, that pretty much covers everything that we have today. Are there any final questions that we'd like to review before we end the webinar?
All right, Grant, I don't see any hands raised, so I guess we'll wait a few minutes, but if no one raises their hand, I just want to say thank you so much for presenting today, and hopefully all of the attendees enjoyed this topic. Of course, if there are any other questions anyone can think of, feel free to email me at msykes@renewmedia.com, or you can visit our website and fill out a contact form there. But again, Grant, thank you so much. And everyone who was in attendance will receive a recording of this webinar. So if you ever want to go back and refresh, you can do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Mallory. Y'all have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks. Bye.